Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement. Your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services. Our offices are located in beautiful, hopefully it's going to warm up, downtown Olivet, Missouri. I'm a 40-plus year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I'm joined by my very able crew, my oldest daughter, Aaron Lapidus, who also is a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager, and Rob Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist. Good morning, gang.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan that has several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate. Second is to deliver a reliable stream of income, one that they can count on, so they can do all the things they like to do during retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Well, another beautiful day in the neighborhood, Saturday morning. Thanks for tuning in to our show. 2 hours of fun and hopefully answering your questions. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And just as a reminder, also, all of our clients are folks like you. They're our listeners. They're over the age of 55. They're within 5 years of retirement, or they're already retired. And as Aaron said, our goal is to create a game plan for them for a fun and hopefully financially secure and worry-free retirement. Good morning, gang.
Good morning.
Yes, baby. And there are lots of ways for you to keep in touch with us during the week.
That's right. Just log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us section and send us an email, a request for a coaching session, both either financial, Medicare, or both, or just ask us a question, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, you can click on the pop-up box that appears that says Sign Up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and we do keep the last 6 to 12 months archived on the website for your review. But as the very first Saturday of March, we have a brand new newsletter.
Exciting.
And this is a great one, I think, because it still is focusing on those beginning of the year thoughts for people, how to prepare for the 2023 year, make it best tax-wise, savings-wise that you possibly can. The first article is an infographic, so to get the full flavor, you got to download the newsletter. Where does your income fit? So this is just, sometimes people like to see where they fall in the rat race, so to speak. Where does their income measure up against other Americans? And this is a little infographic that kind of displays that. The second article is chocked full of really good information about spring cleaning, organizing your financial records. So this will give you some tips on tax records that should be kept and for how long, financial statements that should be kept and for how long, retirement account statements, real estate and investment records, loan documents, insurance policies, auto records, medical records, all different types of records that most people are wary of getting rid of and unsure of when they can. So this will give you a nice little rundown of how long you should be keeping certain documents at the ready. And then the third article is, could your living situation change as you grow older? So I've actually had this conversation a few times in the past week with clients that are talking about, is it time to, do I keep remodeling the house? Am I done living in the house? Do I want to deal with the upkeep of the house? What are community, retirement communities like, independent living? What are those costs versus what I'm spending now? Assisted living facilities, nursing homes. So it gives you a nice overview of what all of the new acronyms for all of the different communities mean. And, if you're driving around the St. Louis or Illinois area, you notice that they're going up like crazy. All different types, memory care facilities, active adult communities, assisted living, retirement communities, all different kinds of things. So you have a lot to choose from. You have a lot of different pricing structures. So it is kind of important. First of all, this was one of the things that I was chatting about with a client a couple of days ago, which was you really want to take a look at not just what's the mortgage payment if you still have one, what are the real estate taxes, we all have those, what are the insurance costs, but also what's the general upkeep and maintenance that you pay on an annual basis for the house. That should all be factored into your residential expenses or your maintenance expenses, as we like to call it. What's it cost for utilities, what's it cost for gas, for water, to have the lawn mode if you don't do it yourself, having those regular checks on your HVAC system, all those pieces added together to really determine, will you be able to create a cost savings, or would you be able to create cost neutrality if you decided to move into one of these communities. And the other thing is, just like investment advisor representatives, we all have different skills. Most of these facilities all have different objectives, different services. What level of service are you looking for? And that could help guide you to the best fit as you transition from, single family home into potentially some active adult living.
Sounds like fun. Again, we call it the Coach's Corner. It's easy to access. Just go to our website, jblfinancial.com. Click on that Coach's Corner newsletter icon in the bottom left-hand corner, or I believe it shows up on almost every page, which is Contact Us.
That's right. So if you peruse the page, if you peruse the website, you will see it follow you around until you decide to sign up. But we promise we won't bug you about it.
And they have access to all our past newsletters as well.
Yes, they absolutely do. If you click on the menu bar on our website and you click on the Contact and Connect section, you'll actually see the newsletter section there, and that's where we store really as many as we can. We like to say the last 6 to 12 months, but we really go all the way back to April of 2022 if you want to have a nice leisured Saturday or Sunday reading
wealth
newsletter.
Of reading material.
It is, and as my dad likes to say, it's, advertisement and solicitation free. It really just is full of information that I would consider multi-generational.
I would certainly agree. And again, if you would like to contact us for a coaching session regarding your retirement game plan or Medicare planning, which we do a lot of, as you know, easy to do. Just hit the Contact Us button and fill in as much details as you'd like to do, and our staff will be happy to contact you and arrange a coaching session, which is easy. It's at our office in Olivet, where we have free parking, lots of goodies because I haven't been there to eat them all, and the best coffee in town. Easy to do, 314-863-0008, which is great. And again, our phone lines are open. We hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 126 from the text line.
People are already chomping at the bit for answers. We
They
have
are.
questions.
We have our first texter, and our first texter writes, "What's the pros and cons of annuities? My coworker was told by a financial advisor to put most of
it.
most of his retirement into annuities because it never loses money. What's your opinion?"
I kind of like that background noise, that swooshing sound.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'll kick this off a little bit, and I would say that, Texter, if you are a listener of our show, we regularly talk about annuities as a tool for retirement planning, for income planning, for potential guaranteed growth or fixed interest. But as in all things, it really does depend on your financial goals, your portfolio, and they really, at the end of the day, are just tools to get us to where we want to go. They aren't necessarily always the solutions, especially with annuities. In exchange for some of the guarantees, you have higher fees associated with the contracts. You also have liquidity restrictions, which why when Rob read most of my money or most of my retirement into annuities, it was kind of a little bit of a chuckle, because rarely, if ever, would we recommend locking up a significant portion of your assets because of those liquidity restrictions. What are your thoughts, Dad?
Well, I would say that annuities fall into two basic camps. One is an accumulation vehicle. We happen to be currently using fixed annuities today as a way to create fixed income without significant loss of principal. Any other type of annuity contract that you're looking at purchasing, if this is a part of your game plan, you really have to understand the back end. These vehicles obviously can be useful in terms of accumulating money, but the real key to these things is using a contract, if you're interested in, to create a guaranteed income stream for life. You're recreating a pension. So for many of our clients that want to try to lock in a level of income, they pay for it, because what happens is the insurance company, as Aaron said, has fees. There are riders that can be purchased to do certain things to, I will say, enhance the contracts. But at the end of the day, you need to have a fit. So let me give an example, if I may, and hopefully we won't get thrown off the air by compliance, right?
If we lose you, we'll know who did it.
Okay. So let's say that we've been working with a client and we've done their retirement game plan, and it's been determined that they need an income stream of approximately $2,000 a month from their retirement plan assets.
So after their Social Security and any other fixed income, we've determined that there's a gap of about $2,000 a month.
You know, our first question that we would have with our client is, how safe and secure would you like this income flow to be, and or what percentage would you be willing to delegate to a safe and secure income flow? Now, there are some folks that might say, you know what, I want all of that, if we can, to be contractually protected, or maybe a part of it. So let's take this example. Let's just say that this client says, you know, I don't have an issue with some variability in terms of returns, but at the same time, I'd like to lock down 1,000 of that 2,000 a month, which would be 12,000 a year. Insurance companies today offer riders that are called guaranteed income riders. You pay a fee for those. And what happens is that what they will do is they'll say that based upon you reaching a certain age, generally it's age 65, they will provide you with a contractually guaranteed income flow of, say, 5% on a principal amount that you have with them. So in this particular case, what we might say is, okay, you want $12,000 a year at a 5% withdrawal rate. That means we need to have in a contract $240,000. At 5%, will provide $12,000 a year. So that would be a situation where we're really always working backwards, and that's what we're thinking. Annuities are expensive investment tools. Some aren't even investment tools; they're savings tools, i.e., fixed annuities. And so you really have to understand how are we going to use it on the back end first. If you don't have an income goal or objective you're attempting to achieve with these things, then frankly, they probably shouldn't be a part of your portfolio. What do you think, babe?
I agree with that, and just go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree. You have to start out with I need income. So how am I going to use this tool to get that income? But if you don't have an income need, the advantages and the disadvantages kind of go up by the wayside, because I don't think you look at those in a vacuum. It has to be because I need an income stream. I need to turn these assets into an income stream that's going to help make my life work. But if you don't have that underlying income need, then this tool is not going to be a good fit.
Right. I definitely agree with that, which is, I think, another way to say, as my dad always likes to say, nothing is ever a good deal. It's does it fit into the game plan that we have mutually designed with a client? Is this the tool that's going to get us to where we want to go? I would also just say, to circle back to the example that you gave, Dad, maybe to couch compliance a little bit, which is it is very important that you consult with a financial advisor representative or your financial advisor representative before you make any of these decisions. The contracts all have different riders, different guarantees, different fees associated with them. In fact, many of them work very differently than one another. So it is important to be well informed and understand what you're purchasing before you make that decision. And all of that example was entirely hypothetical. We weren't using a specific contract to derive those numbers. Just the principle behind how these income functions work inside of annuity contracts.
Honey, what I'd like to do is add something to what Rob said, which I thought was very good in regarding the income need. We have found that over the last 20 plus years in doing retirement planning for folks, that people really fall into one of two categories. I like to call them income now people or income later people.
And everyone becomes income later.
That's right. That's right. You become income later when you hit, at least at this point, age 73, which is you're subject to required minimum distributions. It isn't unusual that because of folks' lifestyle and because of income flows from Social Security and pensions and maybe other sources, that our clients aren't necessarily tapping their retirement assets, and they don't want to. They want to let them grow as long as they can. But at some point in time, they will have to open the faucet and begin to receive a stream of income as in required minimum distributions. So when we talk about a matching thing, we know that required minimum distributions run about 4% of whatever your IRA account balance is. So one purpose we might have with a contract would be to fill that income stream need while letting other assets sit there. So there's a lot of uses for these contracts, but what's important is that, as Aaron said, it's a good deal because there is no such thing as a good deal. What it is does the tool really fit the situation that I'm in? Will it fit it today, and then can I see it fit tomorrow? So you really want to see both sides, the accumulation side of the contract as well as discussion about the distribution side of the contract.
I think that was an excellent question to kick off our morning. And I think because we're reaching the 25th minute of our first hour, let's take our first break.
Wow, that went by quick.
Didn't it?
It did.
Well, stick around and we'll be right back.
Hey, KTRS listeners, Roger Wigginton here, Don Rogers Limited, 6727 West Main in Belleville. Well, January and February are behind us. We're into March. We're into spring. Love to have you stop by the store because we are loaded in our men's and women's department with great-looking spring merchandise. I want you to see the Lulu Bee, our dresses, our tops. They all have the UPF fabric to protect, a cooling effect, wash and wear, wrinkle-free. The store is an explosion of color. We just got a great shipment of fashion accessories to coordinate back with all the dresses and tops. Our men's department, we just got in a big shipment of our Fusion men's casual summer sportswear. So we're ready for spring. We have a little bit of winter left. It's all marked down to get rid of. We need the room for the new incoming merchandise. So don't forget, we're open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 4. Don Rogers Limited, 6727 West Main in Belleville. Stop by. We'd love to see you. And as always, thank you so very much for listening to our commercial.
The state of the economy and financial markets are in a constant state of flux that affects the level of risk to your business. Hi, I'm Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor at Capital Advisory Group, and the author of the #1 best-selling book on taxes, Keep What's Yours. Since 1976, our company has helped thousands of area businesses minimize the financial risk to their business, reduce their tax liability, and stop overpaying their federal and state income taxes. If you are not taking full advantage of the new tax law and feel like you might be paying more than your fair share in taxes, then let us help you minimize the financial risk to your business with a free tax analysis, and we'll help you make sense of the numbers in the daunting tax code. To learn more, give us a call at 636-394-5524, or you can visit us on the web at capitaladvisorygrp.com.
It's time to thaw out, but be sure to keep those freezers stocked this spring with Dogtown Pizza. Josh here, and whether it's the first nice day of the year or another freak snowstorm, always keep a couple of Dogtown pizzas on hand in case of a hunger emergency. And with 11 flavors, you can have a different pizza every time the temperature changes. So take a tip and save a trip by stocking up on Dogtown pizzas this spring.
I'm Mike Robinson with Robank Properties, and I want your fixer-upper home or condo. It's crazy to spend a ton of money fixing it up when I will pay you top dollar right now. I don't even care what condition it's in. Your trash is my treasure. No inspections, no contingencies, just cold, hard cash. Call me, Mike Robinson, at 314-283-0867. That's Mike Robinson, 314-283-0867, or at robangproperties.com.
Stray Rescue of St. Louis seeks out the animals no shelter will take. Then they breathe life and love back into them and find their forever homes. Join CEO Cassidy Caldwell the first Sunday of every month at 5 to learn more about the Stray Rescue Shelter Program, Freedom Fund, volunteer and foster options. Cassidy has many wonderful rescue stories she wants to share with you. Get involved and make a change. The first Sunday of every month at 5 with Stray Rescue of St. Louis on the Big 550 KTRS.
We would like to welcome you to the great big small town of Belleville, Illinois. Whether you're looking to enjoy the ambiance of our downtown area, complete with shops, restaurants, and entertainment venues to enjoy, or if you're wanting to find the perfect place to raise your family, Belleville is definitely the place you want to be. For more information about our incredible city, please visit Belleville.net to experience all the reasons why you should call Belleville, Illinois home too. Brought to you in part by the Illinois Office of Tourism and Illinois South Tourism.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, it's 9:29 here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis. First half hour is just about done. We've got an hour and a half left. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
It sounds like you're in some sort of tropical paradise. I hear like birds in the background.
Yeah, I had to step outside. I had to walk the dog.
Just living the life.
Multitasking.
Exactly. That's what we do. Well, I was going to say, while we're waiting for your texts and phone calls, what I'd like to do is take a moment to revisit a subject that we we talked about last week, and that we also had a coaching this week.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, it does. Last week we had a discussion about making withdrawals from retirement accounts prior to the age of 59 and a half. And we happened to visit with a client who has been with us for, it's funny, they've been with us for almost 15 years. A young one, he's only 57 now, but he's decided, you know what, I've got enough money. We've been doing his game plan and reviewing his numbers for years and years, and he said, you know what, it's time to hang it up at the end of this year. Well, he's got an issue, right, babe?
He does have an issue. He's a young buck, only 50. He's 58 years old this year.
Okay. And what happened is that he's accumulated several $1 million inside of his retirement account.
Woohoo!
That was like a lackluster woohoo.
Come on, Rob. Woohoo! We'll have to.
Well, whenever you say several $1 million, it should be mandatory.
Yes. He's hooting and hollering, which is great. So we sat down and we determined that his income need, his and his spouse's income need, was about $7,000 a month. They still had an existing mortgage. Would be a little bit lower if it wasn't. And so that means that he needs about $8,400 a month. They're certainly far away. I mean, he's basically at least 4 years away from the minimum age of taking Social Security benefits, and she's a year younger. So those benefits are going to comprise about $3,400 a month of the $8,400 a month that $5,400 of the $8,400 that they need. And therefore, they'll need about $3,000 a month, which we know under our magic safe withdrawal formula, $36,000 per year divided by 4%. They need about $900,000, and so he has a couple times that, which is, as Rob would say, woohoo, but I like to say woohoo. So he really, they're in a great shape, and because he has this extra money, certainly what we'll do is pre-fund his income flows for really 4 years and possibly maybe even take him all the way to normal retirement age, which is 67. So we were feeling kind of comfortable with that. And his question was, Jeff, Aaron, what's the best way to get money out?
And that really is a great question. And the most important piece of this was, how much do we need to start out with? Because if you're under 59 and a half years old, and like most individuals, you have the majority of your assets inside of qualified retirement plans, either at work or inside of IRA accounts, then you're in a position where we have to implement some alternative strategies in order to extract some of those dollars, because if you're under 59 and a half, there's an additional 10% penalty on top of taxes when you pull money out of retirement plans. That it could be Roth, which isn't taxable but has the penalty, or IRA assets, which are taxable and then would also have the penalty, less about 10 or 12 exceptions, none of which are I wanted to retire early and I just need a little bit of income to make it happen.
That's unfortunate. Should be a qualified reason.
The other thing also is that 401k plans are not made for monthly income distributions. No, 401k
plans are really accumulation vehicles. They're meant to accept money from payroll deductions, matching contributions from employer plans, and really that's one of the reasons that they came up with the 59 and a half rule, was because it's to incentivize people not only to save but keep it saved to plan for their retirement. But just as, our clients from this past week, they were excellent savers. They have the ability to retire earlier after having worked out their numbers. But now we have to figure out, how do we turn the faucet on? And just like we discussed last week, we do have two options available to us. The 55 and over rule allows individuals who have separated from employment, which means they're no longer active participants, to make withdrawals from their 401k, 403b, 457 plans. Without the additional 10% penalty, you are still subject to taxation because it was a pre-tax account that you were pulling from. But it does give you the opportunity to make those withdrawals without any restrictions. So you can take as much or as little as you need between 55 and 59 and a half without incurring any excess penalties if you leave the money inside of the 401k. However, the tax code has also allowed an alternative for individuals under 59 and a half. They call that 72T, which allows for equal substantial distributions from your from your IRA account, which would be an individual retirement account pre-59 and a half. But there are restrictions. They have to be equal, meaning you have to make the same distribution every single year for either until you reach 59 and a half or for 5 years, whichever is greater. So in this particular example, and we'll walk through the numbers and how we backed into them, but if our client decides at 58 years old that he's going to execute a 72T distribution, then he's going to have to maintain that exact same distribution from the IRA that we selected for a 5-year period, because 59 and a half is only a year and a half away for him.
Yes, and we found that, again, one of the first thing that we keyed in on with him was talk to us about your income needs. So we know that if they made the decision that they wanted to and they were interested in locking down a certain income number, what we then were able to do is to go back to the IRS tables, as an example in this case. If they had said, okay, we want to lock down $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month of that income that we need, what we would do is we went to the tables, and they told us that basically using a 4% withdrawal rate, which happened to be coincident to the 72T calculation, we would need to take $300,000 from his 401k, do a direct transfer to a self-directed IRA, and we would call that the 72T IRA. Therefore, that would generate $1,000 a month. It would be taxable again, and you can't vary from that distribution, because if you do, you owe the 10% penalty on everything that you had taken previous to that change in the distribution amount. So it's definitely a no-no. You want to follow the rules. We also then said, okay, do you see any need to make any substantial distributions to take care of, let's say, either maybe retirement trips, possibly home remodeling, etc., that would be large capital amounts? We would certainly want to leave that money inside of your 401k plan so that we could do a basic distribution for that total amount without it being subject to that 10% penalty, even though, again, as Aaron mentioned, because this is pre-tax money, it is subject to ordinary income taxes. So it was a good discussion. Where we go and how we do this with them really is going to, again, get down to where are they at from a retirement income point of view, and 12 months can make a whole lot of difference in people's lives, right?
Absolutely. And not only that, the nice thing is that we have some flexibility here in that we don't have to, it's not an all or nothing proposition, meaning one, you don't have to leave all of the money inside of the 401k if you would like some enhanced management, or if you would like to take regular distributions, meaning on a monthly basis, as if you were literally replacing a paycheck. We can take a portion and create that 72T, or we can leave a portion in the 401k, which will allow for that flexibility for those larger capital consumption events, or just in the event it's not a large event, it's not a large capital consumption event, but you need a couple extra $1,000. If you put the money inside of the 72T, you cannot get extra out. Now, they do allow you over the course of the 5 year, over the course of your 72T distribution time, so be that 5 years or longer, depending upon when you may have started your 72T, they allow you to change your distribution method one time using, the IRS has 3 different formulas. They all work out to about 4%, some a little more, some a little less, one right about there, so it's almost like Goldilocks. They'll let you change it one time, but you're not going to see a substantial difference in your distribution. So if you do come to a point where you need extra cash and the only place to get it is from your retirement account, then you may want to make sure that you've created a little bit of excess flexibility for yourself.
Yes, and and it's funny because they don't think of themselves this way, but we think of them as youngsters. Most of our clients are probably around the age of 62 when they become clients. These folks are a little bit younger, which is great. And what's nice is that having a relationship over the years, we've been able to do a couple of other things. Obviously, talk to them about managing and eliminating debt, dealing with financing of college educations. And again, that also becomes a really big, I don't want to call it secondary discussion, but because it always is really a primary discussion, which is how do we deal with our cash flow? Does it make sense to pay off that mortgage? Does it make sense to, pay off that student loan debt if in fact you've taken on some obligation for your children? And or, if we're going to do large improvements, which a lot of folks are doing when they're making the decision that, hey, we're either staying here in St. Louis, this is going to be our hopefully retirement home, or looking other places, being able to get a hold of large amounts, because unfortunately remodeling, it ain't cheap anymore. And doing this in a tax efficient way, was a good idea. I mean, it was just great. So we're able to play out all these different alternatives, and the fun part was we were able to do that right in front of them on our 6x9 electronic whiteboard. And at least for me, seeing it, I think of seeing things in pictures, but when I'm seeing it face to face, it helps me get clarity, and we find with most folks that's the same way. And so understanding your numbers is really the key to retirement planning. And this is, and again, as I've said before many times over the years, the IRS code is a playbook. And if you use the playbook in the right way, you certainly can get some great benefits. You don't need to be creative. It's pretty black and white. So 72T, in-service distributions, keeping money inside plans. It's always good to get a second opinion from your tax professional, from your financial advisor, so that this is one of those decisions that isn't necessarily irrevocable, but it certainly can create restrictions on you. So you really want to think 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road.
Absolutely. And really, I think this almost plays into that. It's the same principle as our first texter's question about the use of annuities. The IRS gives you several options here, the 72T, the 55 and over rule. None of them are good in and of themselves. They just really have to fit into your game plan. So it's important to run your numbers first, because that will back you into
the
solution that
right.
you want to execute using the tax code appropriately. And Dad, like you said, it's not that these aren't decisions like when you make a pension election and it's irreversible, but one, you could end up paying more taxes than you had planned, which no one ever really wants to do. Or two, you could find yourself in a situation where you've got some liquidity restrictions and maybe you have to put off the things you want to do because you don't want to pay the extra taxes or penalties. So it's always good to have a plan, and one that can be at least a little bit flexible.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. I was going to suggest that if I was to decide to write a book on retirement planning,
I would read it.
You were such a suck-up.
I would. Sorry.
Well, he's in that phase, so it's okay, honey.
I know, I left that at 2. It's okay.
I would tell you that the title of the book would be Stuff Happens.
Oh, right. I mean, because you can't say the other word on the radio.
Well, exactly. And what, we're working with folks. We're coming up with a game plan for them, a strategy for cash flow, to protect and preserve their assets, to grow them prudently, to pass them on to their children, to deal with what happens if somebody gets sick or passes away. And stuff does happen. I mean, it just happens. It happens unexpectedly. But understanding where you are and really having good control of your numbers. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is having control of your numbers really puts you, I think, in the best place to make good decisions and, frankly, deal with, flat tires along the way on the road trip. So,
you know what, Dad? Before we take our second break of our first hour, we got to talk to Sal. We can't make him wait through the break.
Absolutely not.
Good morning, Sal.
Yeah, I'm too old. I might not make it through the break. I just got a real quick question for you. In a retirement account, we have so many investments in the account. Would it be? thinking about buying a condo, not for me, but for someone else, would it be better for me to take money out of the? Can you put that in an investment account, or just go ahead and borrow money for the thing?
Sal, there are very few custodians banks that have IRAs that will allow you to hold real estate inside of the IRA. So that would be like you're making the purchase with IRA assets, they're not leaving the IRA, so you're not paying taxes on those assets, and then the IRA is actually holding the real estate. Those are very specialized banks, and I've only heard of maybe one or two that do that.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing, Sal, I think maybe the other question was, well, and maybe I didn't hear it right, but if you're needing capital to either purchase, make a deposit, down payment, what we would want to do is we would want to look at what your current expected income level is and make sure that if we can, and if it's needed to, is to pass it over one or more tax periods so that we can minimize the effect of not only federal income taxes but also a potential for your income going over a limit where it may cost you and your wife additional Medicare Part B premiums. So I think that once you have some numbers, what we can then do is, what we always do is a little war game.
Okay.
Right.
Well, when I get the numbers, I'll come in and we'll have a meeting.
Sounds great.
We would love to see you and your sweet wife. It's been a year, I think, close to.
I want to put it on that whiteboard.
I hear you.
We'll give you the magic pen, even. Let you
and I will share one of my ho-hos with you, even though I know that your wife wouldn't be happy about that. So it's cool.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for that call, Sal. We appreciate that. And it's so fun. It's great to get these calls, these questions, and how do we do it? And that's really the fun of retirement planning. Things do happen. Our caller was, not going to give up any personal information here because it would be imprudent to do so and not professional. But, people go through phases where, they plan for retirements. Maybe they sell their businesses. They're in situations where maybe they have to help children, grandchildren, etc., with educational expenses or possibly housing situations. Really unexpected things. So stuff really does happen, and having someone that you can get a second opinion from that can help you also sort of maneuver the tax environment at the same time. It's just great. And, it's fun because, again, Sal was originally a listener, and just like all of our clients, they're like you folks, you're listening to the show.
That's right.
I thought it was great that he referenced the whiteboard, the visual,
it's real.
The visual representation of where you are and where we're going to take you.
And we have two of them, right?
We got two of them. Yes, we
Absolutely.
do. We're expanding 2 whiteboards. We can do 2 coaching sessions at a time now. It's great. But you know what else is great? Our second break of the hour. We'll be right back to answer more of your questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. We'll be right back.
Are you a former smoker? The lawyers at Teen Malone are bringing cases against Big Tobacco to hold them accountable for their wrongdoings. If you or a loved one have recently been diagnosed with a smoking-related illness, such as bladder cancer, throat cancer, lung cancer, or COPD, please call 314-800-1117 or visit teenmalone.com/smoking-lawsuit to learn more. That's 314-800-1117. There's no cost to speak with us.
Hi, Chris Saraceno for the Bartolinos family of restaurants, where we proudly support our first responders and the important work of the Backstoppers. And thank you, our loyal guest, for the opportunity to serve you for over a half-century. I'd like to invite you to one of our 4 restaurants: Bartolinos South on South Lindbergh, Bartolinos Osteria at Hampton and 44, Chris's Pancake and Dining at the corner of Watson and Southwest, and Chris's at the Docket downtown on Tucker. Experience the Bartolinos tradition, where our family awaits to serve you.
Hi, this is John Shea from the Inside Out Show. If you need an electrician, whether it's residential or commercial, Baldy Electric at 314-968-9999 or BaldyElectric.com is who you should call. I've been using Baldy Electric in my business for quite a few years now, and I couldn't be happier. They handle all my clients' needs, and they are so easy to work with. They do panel replacements and upgrades, generators for the whole house, service calls to replace those bulbs that you can't even reach, adding a sound system inside or out. If you have aluminum or knob and tube wiring, they can do the repairs, the ones that somebody else tried to but really didn't. Whether it's residential or commercial, Baldy Electrics have the electricians that know what to do and how to comply with all the codes. You can feel safe knowing the electricians from Baldy Electric wired your home or business. Baldy Electric at 314-968-9999 or BaldyElectric.com is the company you want to call. That's Baldy Electric.
Tony here from Appliance Discounters. You've heard my sister and me talk about our in-stock appliances at our large warehouse. Well, guess what? We've expanded.
We have doubled our warehouse size to 80,000 square feet of fully stocked name brands like GE, GE Profile, and Cafe.
Whether you need your appliances right away or you want to buy them now and have us hold them for a future project, Appliance Discounters is your place to go.
Full shopping experience online or at any of our locally owned showrooms, and our warehouse will be ready. And as always,
our savings are your savings.
It's time to thaw out, but be sure to keep those freezers stocked this spring with Dogtown Pizza. Josh here, and whether it's the first nice day of the year or another freak snowstorm, always keep a couple of Dogtown pizzas on hand in case of a hunger emergency. And with 11 flavors, you can have a different pizza every time the temperature changes. So take a tip and save a trip by stocking up on Dogtown pizzas this spring.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Woohoo! 9:52 here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis. Coming to close on our first hour of Straight Talk on Retirement, so don't touch that dial. We got another hour coming. About 7 minutes left in this one. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the usually hot text line.
That's right.
And I guess while we're waiting for your calls and texts, I thought it would be good to, Erin, for you and Rob, to talk about a little coaching session that you guys had with John last week, who is one of our clients and a recently retired welder.
We did. And John came in for a coaching session this week, and like you said, he's a retired welder, 71 years old, hell of a grip. And oh,
you know what's so funny that you say that? Because what my great-grandpa, so my dad's grandfather, was a steel worker in Pittsburgh, and he had quite the grip.
Oh my!
So I hear. I didn't get to meet him.
I felt like I was in that scene in Superman 2 where General Zod is getting his hand crushed. I was like, oh my God, can I get that thing back? I need this to work with. But
well, that's funny because as Erin was referring to, my mom's dad, he had a grip of iron, and it was a rite of passage every time we went to his house, which, by the way, looked like Archie Bumpers. It was a row house in Pittsburgh. We had to shake his hand when we came in, and we'd be screaming. And my grandma would be yelling at him, "Izzy, cut it out," etc. So it was a lot, again, one of those fun family memories. But tell us about John. So he's 71.
71.
What happened?
His wife recently passed away a few years ago, but he's got 2 kids. He's got 2 adorable grandkids, angels. And, John is in a...
Just totally rubbing, just sucking up today.
Yeah, well...
Looking for a raise. Let's go.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Right.
You know, you were waiting for that, babe. It wasn't. Yes. It wasn't getting by.
I'm just not sure why he teed it up for you so nicely.
Because I'm that kind of guy.
You know,
he's like your perfect straight man now. I've lost my role.
There you go. Well, great.
So John has 2 IRAs worth about $700,000, and because John is turning 73 this year, he's got to start taking his required minimum distributions. And he's really in a great place. I mean, his game plan is tight. I mean, his house is paid off. He has no debt. His Social Security and pension more than make up his income needs every month. And he doesn't even need the distributions that he's going to be required to take from his IRAs to make his life work. I mean, he is the proverbial rock star.
Woo-hoo!
That's right.
We love that.
So what was concerning John was while he might not need the income from his IRAs, he's heard us on the radio talk about the fact that his children and his grandchildren stand to inherit a ginormous tax bill. And he wasn't very pleased with that.
So he asked, Rob, how can I protect my family from the tax consequences of inheriting this IRA that's, as you mentioned, about $700,000 right now?
Yes, and unfortunately, if his children were to inherit these, they would have to be emptied out within 10 years, which could create a rather sizable tax bill. I mean, it could run upwards of 30% in some cases. So
that's exactly right, because if he's got 2 kids, he's going to be vanilla, pass it on to his 2 children, and then let his children pass that on to the grandchildren. Both of his children are going to inherit about $350,000 each. That's going to have to be distributed over a 10-year period from the date of John's passing. Unlike the rules in the past where an individual that inherited an IRA could stretch it out over the course of their life, they've done away with that. So that's really changed the tax consequences of inheriting large amounts of money that are inside of qualified accounts.
Really changes the whole equation of how you have to look at these things.
Right, and because John is 73 years old this year, that means that when he does pass away, his children or whomever inherits the IRAs is going to have to take at least his required minimum distribution from those accounts every year. So you have a minimum. You do not have a maximum, with the intended end point being that 10th year.
Well,
and I know that one question you had mentioned to me that he had was, well, what about doing Roth conversions? The problem with RMDs and Roth conversions is the 2 don't apply. So even though he may have been forced to take about $28,000 a year because he had $700,000 of IRAs, 4% withdrawal, he couldn't take that money and put it into a Roth. It wouldn't count as a Roth conversion.
Right, so he would have to first take the $28,000, pay taxes on it, and then if he wanted to convert money in addition to the $28,000 he's already taken and paid taxes on, he could elect to take more, pay more taxes, and then convert to the Roth.
Yeah, that's
probably
not ideal.
In this case, more is not better. That's right.
Well, what if we used a portion of the RMDs that he doesn't need to make his life work to fund a life insurance policy that would pay for the taxes on these IRAs? The beneficiaries would get the death benefit income tax free.
This is another woohoo moment.
And then use that death benefit to then pay the taxes on the IRA.
So essentially what you're doing, as opposed to paying taxes, which are, I like to say, dimes on the dollar, because we think of that in percentages of 15, 20, 30%, in order to reduce the taxation for your beneficiaries, you're going to pay pennies on the dollar, potentially for a life insurance policy that will then on the back end help maintain the size of the IRA by mitigating those taxes with the tax-free dollars.
Absolutely. And I chose John was interested, and I offered to prepare some quotes, and I chose a life insurance policy, as you said, with a $350,000 face amount, and the premium was $1,380, well within his $2,400 a month RMD requirement. So it worked out really, really well. But, John had another issue that we'll get to at the other side of this break, because we're coming up on a hard one.
We are indeed, but we will talk about not only, using those RMD dollars to pay for a life insurance policy, but what some of those benefits are going to be in the long run for John and his family after this break.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement, hour number 2, the hour of power. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the ever-popular text line. During our last hour, we had an opportunity to start a segment talking a little bit about John the Welder, a recent widower, just turned 73, subject to required minimum distributions. We just had a discussion with him about what his children and or grandchildren would face in regard to inheriting those IRAs, and he had about $700,000 of assets. And Rob came up with a recommendation, which I thought was great, to be able to do to purchase a life insurance contract using a portion of that required minimum distribution to help cover the taxes. Rob, what I really liked about this recommendation was it really was a two-part recommendation. The first one was that we would have taxes about $250,000, which is what you had estimated on that distributions ultimately to his children. But John also wanted to get a little bit of a taste, a little money to his grandchildren, also at the time of his death, so that extra $100,000, $50,000 was going to each grandchild. I thought that was fabulous.
Oh, thank you. When you've got me in the habit of thinking about wealth transfers, and do you really want to leave it to the children when the grandkids won't see it until your kids are your age or beyond? So, how do you want to structure this? So, when I look at these situations, right away my mind goes right to that equation of how do we want to pass these assets on? Who do we want to acquire them, and when?
Very good. But also, sometimes people don't always want to pay premiums, as you had mentioned, that this was a guaranteed continuous premium and that would go throughout his life. He was really interested in maybe something that was a little bit shorter, right?
Absolutely. And, he loved the idea of using the life insurance as a way of paying for these taxes, but wasn't completely thrilled with the idea of paying forever. So we ran what's called a 10-pay. So he'd only pay for 10 years, and then the contract would be fully funded. And then the premium went from $1,380 to $1,850, so still well within his $2,400 a month distribution limit.
That's fabulous. Taking that RMD, having a function for it, and I know in his case also, because his home was paid off, he didn't have any debt, he was also going to have enough money to take care of his real estate taxes, the insurance premiums, etc. Not really having and affecting his lifestyle by making this purchase, but at the same time really being able to effectively just direct this money to a place that it could truly improve as well as preserve the wealth that he had created over his lifetime. Very important function. And it was funny because I was having a conversation the other day with one of our clients who happens to be, I want to say typical. They're in their mid to late 60s, and of course, as they're starting their journey on the retirement, their first thought is, I need to take care of us to make sure that we can do all the things that we've dreamed about and wanted to do, have the cash flow, etc. Not so worried about the kids and or the grandkids. If there's something there, they'll get it.
That tune changes.
Exactly, babe. We found that it does change. And so I just took the opportunity to say, listen, I appreciate that, and we've got a game plan. Stuff will happen, but we're pretty confident that at this moment we'll be able to make things work for you. So let's go 10 years down the road. Will your thinking change? And I'll say probably it may. As you get closer to visiting your maker, wanting to preserve and protect that once you're over the whole we'll call it angst or anxiety over, can I really replace that part of my paycheck that I have to do to make my lifestyle work with Social Security, with my pension, etc., being away from full-time employment. I can really think of second, third generationally, and that's our job. It's important to say, let's look at what's priorities today, but also what are the things that you're really going to be thinking about and want to be thinking about in the future. So it was a good discussion.
It was excellent.
And I just really love the idea that now Grandma and Grandpa get to help the grandchildren secure their retirement or give them the freedom to pursue their interests without having to worry about debt or with having debt be a much less significant portion of their, career decisions or their job, where they're going to accept employment from. So it's nice to be able to work with people that have the ability to do this and also have the foresight to say, like, I want to make that happen for my grandchildren. Because really all it's doing is securing. You're not just passing the assets on, you're passing security on. Because if you think about, Dad, you love to call the kids the cannibals. If you're able to alleviate cannibalism multi-generationally, just think of how much each generation's got the benefits of that. Are you moving assets around right now physically, Dad? What is going on?
I'm sorry, babe, but the answer is no. I'm not.
No. It sounded like you might be. Like I might be ending up with some gold bullion or something like that. No such luck.
Well, you know where all the cookies are hid already, so that's really an open question.
Fair enough.
I was, the other thing I was just, and something that we've talked about amongst ourselves as also as with clients, is that how would your life have been different, maybe, if in your 20s, 30s, etc., you had inherited $50,000, $100,000, income tax free? Could you have been more entrepreneurial? Could you have gotten rid of maybe debt that you had accumulated and made your life a little bit, taken the temperature down?
Right.
That's right, etc. How things might have been different. And, what's curious about this is that this is really not a conversation that my parents, well, my dad was a life insurance agent, so of course he had this conversation, but most parents, grandparents, he never thought about that. Because this is really our generation, the baby boomers, are really the first generation to be involved in true wealth creation through qualified retirement plans, IRAs, Roth IRAs. So this is a conversation that you may not have thought about, considered, but the truth is that you have the ability, I believe, to really affect intergenerational wealth, your family's financial situation over, 1, 2, 3 generations. You need to think about it. And it's something that we're having our clients think about all the time because
and not only that, absolutely, and not only that, I think the changes to the tax law have really made it truly beneficial to start thinking multi-generationally, just based on the fact that you don't want to lose a significant portion of your assets to taxes when you pass those when you begin to pass your assets on.
Well, that's what the fun of coaching sessions are all about, either with newer prospective clients or with current clients. It's just great to be able to talk, deal with these subjects, because the thing is, you're not getting them on your internet feed. They're really not in the literature right now. And I think getting ahead of this, really planning for that intergenerational wealth transfer, frankly, for all the folks that we've done this with, they're thanking us because they hadn't considered it. Their friends aren't talking about it. But being able to put maybe your thumb on destiny, on the future, is something that, frankly, people really never imagined. And I think it's cool. It's fun. So we're going to keep talking to you about it. We're going to keep talking to our clients about it. And I was going to say, honey, we're going to keep talking. We're going to take our first break.
You know what? Let's take our first break of the hour, because when we get back, I have a off-the-wall but very important smart choices about your healthcare segment for this morning.
That sounds great. Don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be right back with more Straight Talk on Retirement after these messages.
If you're turning 65, this is one of the most critical choices for your retirement game plan. Enrolling in Medicare Part B and choosing your Medicare supplement. I will help you safely navigate this process and find the health insurance plan that best works with your new Medicare coverage. Getting started is easy. Call me at 314-863-0008, 314-863-0008 to arrange for a free health insurance coaching session, or email me at aaron@jblfinancial.com.
Come on, start already. Come on, you rigid fabricator.
Is it time to make a change with your lawn equipment? Hi, this is Frank Blair from Schnarr's Hardware. The next time you're ready to do lawn work, have the next best thing to a professional lawn crew waiting for you. Reach for the tools they rely on. Echo Outdoor Power Equipment. For power and durability, season after season, Echo Power Tools have been the choice of professionals for years. Every engine carries the highest performance rating available, and every product is backed by the industry's only 5-year consumer warranty. And in the unlikely event your Echo sounds like the beginning of this commercial, bring it to us. We're a servicing dealer. So come to Schnarr's Hardware and let us help you put an Echo in your garage. We're open 7 days a week, so call us at 314-993-0910 in Ladue or 314-961-4522 in Webster Groves. For address, hours, or to shop online, go to schnarrs.com. It's easy when you start at Schnarrs.
Now is when Coventry turns confusion into clarity. Coventry Healthcare has got a simple approach to care. By listening to their members, Coventry can make plans that work harder for you and your budget. The result? They offer great service and clear costs. If you're looking for a plan that's more about you, give them a call at 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now is the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, it's 10:17 here on the Big 550 KTRS Talk Radio St. Louis. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuity specialist.
And we are willing, waiting, and wanting to answer your calls at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And while we're waiting for those to fill up, I know that we want to go into our Smart Choices About Your Healthcare segment, which is sponsored this week and every single week by our very good friends
at Aetna and Anthem of Missouri.
Thank you, folks, for sponsoring the show. Take it away, babe.
So, as we talk about on the show often, most of our topics come from coaching sessions that we've had in the past, or sometimes they come from questions from the show that we get several of and think, hey, this is a great topic that a lot of people are thinking about. Well, this topic for today has come from two separate individuals that brought it up over the course of just 1 week. I had a coaching session with a client last week who said to me, Aaron, I have a sister. Her and her husband are turning 65 this year, and they are really interested in, as opposed to electing Medicare, selecting one of those health-sharing health ministry options that they believe would be... Dad, what are you doing, my man? Right.
I'm moving the microphone around, but I wanted to do an...
Okay. Well, let's sit still for just a few moments here. All right. Anyway, they were more interested in one of these health ministries because they thought it would be less expensive. And then, just a couple of days ago, I received an email from a client that said, hey, Aaron, have you heard about these health ministries? Look at this specific one. It looks like they're super fraudulent. What do you think?
Wow.
Right? So, completely unrelated, however... super important question, because I can completely understand the compulsion to look for less expensive, more effective health care insurance for yourself and for your family, especially if you do not have access to an employer-based health insurance plan. The individual prices are high. The deductibles are high. The out-of-pocket maximums, what are they? High. The network's super narrow. So it feels like you're paying a lot for not very much. However, What you are paying for when you work with an accredited insurance company that is offering you a health insurance contract is you are receiving contractual obligations guaranteed by the insurance company, enforceable by law, by the insurance boards in the state in which you live, that if something happens that falls under the contract, you get sick, you need the doctor, you need surgery, falls under the contract, the insurance company is obligated to cover it the way that they said they would based on the contract that you signed. Your obligation is to pay premium. You pay premium, they uphold their side of the contract. These health ministries have been around for decades, but they became increasingly popular when the Affordable Care Act was implemented because, unfortunately, what the Affordable Care Act did was drive prices up for most people for not only their health insurance premiums, but the cost of care for them to access care. In true government fashion, a couple of representatives that live in states that have these health ministries based there, their northeastern states, these congressmen were able to get exceptions written into the Affordable Care Act that said if you are a participant in a healthcare ministry, you fall within what would be considered health insurance, so you aren't subject to any of the penalties. So they were hanging around for a long time in the past, and then they became increasingly popular just about 10 years ago when the Affordable Care Act was passed. The basis of these health ministries is hope. Literally, that's all that it is. You pay a certain amount of money every month, like a premium, and these health insurance ministries say that when you have a claim that is outside normal maintenance, so for example, your annual visits to the doctor, wellness checks, things of that nature are not going to be covered under this policy, but anything above and beyond that, they and their members are going to help pay your insurance, not your insurance because you don't have insurance, your medical costs. They just say that's what's going to happen. You don't sign a contract that guarantees a percentage, a certain dollar amount, certain types of coverage are guaranteed to be covered. You just agree that hopefully on the kindness of this community and the benevolence of the company that you are working with, that when you receive a bill and you forward along to the ministry, that they're going to pay it for you.
So it sounds like we're going to pass the hat.
That's exactly what, it's a national hat passing situation. It really is. Or I don't think it's called a hat. It's a collection plate, right?
I'd be talking to someone who hasn't stepped foot in the church and
don't say that.
Longer
this
than
is
I
God's
care
country.
to. I know.
Goodness.
I don't even want to admit it.
Anyway, let's go back to what I... So, yes, basically, you're relying... And you know what? That is a beautiful thing, to want to rely on your community and everyone pitch in to help each other. But what happens if you're left with the hat that has nothing in it? And you've got a medical bill, $10,000, $20,000, because you don't have any other coverage. This is your quote-unquote coverage, and I'm sure that if the insurance board was listening to me, they would say you can't call it coverage because that's not really what it is. It's just an agreement that you have, almost like a handshake with these ministries that they're going to pay. They sit outside the bounds of the insurance regulators. They sit outside of the bounds of Medicare.
Yeah, honey, that's incredible, because all I'm thinking in my mind is like somebody's walking into machine gun fire. I mean, why would you... Medicare is government subsidized.
Right.
We all pay for it through our payroll deductions on our Part A, through Part A.
You already paid for it, guys. You've been paying your whole life.
and then if you don't elect it, then what happens is that you're shooting yourself in the foot, because then you're adding Medicare Part B premiums and possibly prescription drug additional premiums for the rest of your life.
If you ever decide to elect it, yes. But I think the more pressing concern is you have concerns on both sides. This came up as someone for pre-65 in one situation and after 65 in the second. Pre-65, like I kind of opened the conversation with, I can understand the appeal. It's less expensive. You feel like you have security because you've seen them work in the past. They are they're not federally funded, nor are they federally sanctioned, but they're companies that do exist. So you might put your faith in them as opposed to an insurance company, but there's no guarantee or obligation from these companies to help you actually make these bill payments. And at the end of the day, the bills are in your name. They're not in the health ministry's name, the company that you select. Now, the second client that I was working with who sent us that email, he had found an article that was talking about how one of these ministries, the largest one in fact, was actually run by, unfortunately, some nefarious characters that have been known kind of thieves in the past. And they had taken all of these monthly dues, I'll call them, because it's not really a premium, and bought all different types of businesses, including like a marijuana farm, and then they weren't paying out the claims because they didn't have any money left.
Boy, that's rotten.
Yeah, it is, because one, you've played on the generosity and good-spirited nature of people, but then two, you've really left them with sometimes crippling medical bills. Now, if you are someone that's reaching the age of 65 and you're looking at Medicare, I would be willing to bet that you will pay less money just electing traditional Medicare and a supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan than you would pay in monthly dues to a ministry anyway. You have coverage that's guaranteed by the federal government, that's guaranteed contractually by whichever insurer that you select to supplement your Medicare coverage, be it a Medicare Advantage plan or a supplement, and the coverage is excellent. So I would be willing to have Frank, our Medicare coach, go toe-to-toe with these ministries just on a dollar-for-dollar basis, setting aside everything we just talked about, and say that you would end up coming out ahead with Medicare. So if you're someone reaching the age of 65, I would be if you're anyone, I would be wary of these health ministries because, like I said, they're not insurance products. They're just, like, Dad, that was a great analogy. They're like national collection plates. And sometimes you get the charity, and then if you don't, there's no obligation to give it to you. So, and
it doesn't sound like you have much recourse if you end up without a chair when the music stops in this situation.
You got to go to a lot of these companies are set up. There's a panel. They make the decision if your claim can be paid or not, because sometimes they also have religious restrictions around what they will and will not cover, which those things are made aware to you on the outset. Like, they'll send you a list of the things that they absolutely won't cover based on religious reasons. But yes, you don't have any recourse, like I said, and that's the other problem. They're not regulated by anything. They're not regulated by the insurance boards. They're not regulated by federal government. They're not regulated by the SEC or FINRA. So they sit outside of all of these different regulatory bodies.
That's never good.
Right.
And there's one other thing that you haven't mentioned here, honey, which folks need to key in on. Every healthcare plan that you have today, whether it's through your work, whether it's through individual coverage, whether it's through Medicare, your physicians and your hospitals have negotiated agreements on fees.
Right.
And if you're getting explanation of benefit statements right now from work or wherever it would be, you're seeing that, they're charging what I would call unreasonable yet customary for these services, but they're taking a big discount because those discounts have been contractually done. And that's with an insurance contract, you actually have a thing called a hold harmless provision, which means that they can't charge you more than what they've agreed to be paid. When you're working outside of the insurance market, which is what this is specifically, you don't have that protection. You don't have the hold harmless provision, and frankly, you're not getting the discounts that you are used to, but you don't see until you have your claims. So, there's just nothing good about this. And we had a client, I know, honey, that we found out retrospectively, that went, they were telling us about this or telling us about it, maybe we're going to think about this, and they went and did it. Fortunately for them, nothing happened. They went for about 2 years.
They also had no claims.
Well, that was the point, right. And then they went on to Medicare anyways, which was fine in another state, but
honestly, I think my heart was more concerned for that 2-year period than they were, which,
Well, sure, because the truth is that we were, at the end of the day, if those claims, if they'd had claims and they hadn't been paid, we were going to be the ones to have to drain their retirement and other accounts to make that happen. So, you know, and nobody likes insurance companies. Let's be real, okay? You just don't. You know, they're big buildings, big computers, lots of administrative people. They're the middleman between, you know, your money and risk sharing. And so at the end of the day, you purchase insurance to be able to handle risks that you financially can't. Your house blowing up, your car getting ruined, somebody stealing your golf cart, your health care. You know, I mean, healthcare expenses are incredibly expensive, and especially in a catastrophic situation. Talk about somebody that's burned, someone that has cancer. So, I mean, these treatments, open hearts, I mean, these treatments can run hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And they're ongoing with additional care that's necessary, so it's not just one bill that you're working with. It could be a continuation of care that you're piling these expenses on for. And, Dad, I think you make just a really good point, which is even for those individuals out there who feel like they're not getting very much for what they're paying, and I can sympathize with that, those discounts that have been pre-negotiated between the insurance companies and the hospitals to give you at least a little benefit from what the actual retail cost of these services, prescriptions, and needs are, is not invaluable because it's calculable, but it's an incredible piece that is added into your plan that is not available if you're not using an insurance company with a contract. So all of that being said, I would just be very wary of, you know, Dad, I read that quote sometime, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. I knew I would get you with that one. I feel like it applies here. You really, unfortunately, in this environment, you just have to be very aware and you have to be a very educated consumer. And if you have questions about these things, you found something online, you want to send us an email, Aaron@jblfinancial.com, or Franklin, our Medicare coach, Frank Lin at jblfinancial.com, and just run it by us before you make a decision. Because although with the health ministries, there's no enrollment periods because they'll take your money whenever you want to give it to them, insurance companies do have enrollment periods that you have to follow before you make a decision that you can't reverse for a year or more potentially. Just let us know. We'd be happy to help out, happy to give you some advice, happy to show you other options if you're willing. But I would not go on the full faith of reading the website or the marketing materials of these companies.
Well, I can only tell you when I see how happy our clients are when they meet with Frank, and afterwards when I become a grown-up and I have to elect to take Medicare or open enrollment comes around, I'm definitely going to sit down with Frank because it costs me nothing. He's an expert, and I mean, it literally will only cost you if you make a decision that you're not fully aware that you're making, and it turns out not to be exactly what you want. That's the only way
That's
you
the
really
drawback.
Right. So sitting down with Frank, going over all your options, oh, by the way, cost you nothing. Like, I mean, that's the cherry on top in all of it, but there's just no good reason I can think of not to do it.
Well, it's easy to do. Again, you can always give Frank or Aaron a call, 314-863-0008. Honey, we're closing up this segment on this thing, but I just have one final comment.
Mm-hmm.
If these business enterprises, which is what they are, were not faith-based, nobody would do it.
That's
just think about. I mean,
point.
just think about it. I mean, if Jesus wasn't involved, or faith, whatever, etc., would you really do it? I mean, you're depending upon the faithfulness of the people that are there.
You're not just depending upon, like, let's call them other parishioners. You're depending upon the organization that is collecting all of the money to actually pay it out. And those people have no obligation or restrictions upon them. That's really where the issue comes in, because I'm sure if you went to church or your sanctuary or wherever you practice and your religion, and you said, "Gosh, I'm short. We have these medical bills." People will probably give you donations because people are generally good, but you've now put another middleman between you and the money that has no obligation. And It's just like you said, a corporation.
And you combine that with little to no oversight, and there's like 10 ways this can end, and 9 of them are bad.
Right. And you know what? We have Russell on line 1 that has a health insurance question. So let's get to our callers before we get to our second break of the hour.
Good morning, Russell.
Okay, here's the scenario. My son works at a small IT company. There's 5 full-time employees and 5 part-time employees. His company was recently purchased by a corporation that owns about 25 to 30 other companies. Currently, my son has no benefits. Will the new corporation be required to provide benefits to the new company employees?
The answer is probably yes. If the other companies are providing benefits, if they're a member of a control group, which means that 80% of the ownership of your son's new company is commonly owned among the other companies, then the answer probably is yes. But
does depend on how the companies are structured. Like
exactly, and whether they have enough common out of ownership. And again, I think that your son could easily ask that question to HR, and if not, and he's under 26, you get to pick him up, Russell. Woo-hoo! Okay. The joy of fatherhood, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, Russell, by the way, that also applies to retirement accounts.
Right.
If your son's under a retirement plan, if they make it a control group, which is with the other plans, then either his plan design will probably change to be similar to the one of the major, let's put it this way, of the control group, or it may just be kept separate. So usually these things turn out well.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And you know what? We have Chris on line 2 as well.
Good morning, Chris.
Fabulous.
Hi, and I'll take my answer off the air because I'm driving. 74 years old, working full-time, have some cash to invest. Looking at CD or money market, I'm wondering if there are any ramifications going either direction.
Excellent question. One that's being brought up quite frequently now that money market accounts have started crediting higher rates of interest, and CDs have also started to pick up the pace a little bit. I would say that there are a couple of fundamental differences between these options. The first, CDs are FDIC insured because they are not securities instruments. They're offered to you by the bank. Now, money market accounts are SPIC insured. They are not FDIC insured. Although many banks offer them, they're backed by usually treasury bills, which are securities, which means they fall outside of the FDIC coverage and into the SPIC coverage.
Yes, and they do pay a little better rate of interest. So I think the question you have to ask yourself is, if I think interest rates are going to continue to rise in the short term, in the intermediate term, then what I would want to do is I would want to if I want to take a small piece of my money, maybe lock it up for a longer period of time through a CD. Otherwise, what I would do is I'd engage in a high-yielding money market and ride the wave.
Right,
on the way back up.
That's also another really important difference, which is with the CD, you're generally locking in a rate of interest for a specific amount of time. With money market accounts, those accounts tend to be floating rate, which means they're going to rise and fall based on usually what the 10-year Treasury is doing. So it doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing situation. We have many clients that utilize what they would call CD laddering, which is they're either electing 6, 1 year, sometimes a little bit longer, and letting them roll or either reinvesting them or taking the cash after those CDs mature and not reinvesting. So you have a rolling amount of liquidity happening over 6 to 12-month periods. The money market accounts are significantly more liquid. You have to be sure that you understand the rules and restrictions of whichever money market account you select. Some have no requirements. You can put the money in for as long or as little as you'd like. You don't have to do certain numbers of transactions, etc. Others have more requirements, or they also may come with fees. So you just want to be clear on what you're selecting and making sure that you're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, honey. with most people's, we'll call it vault money, it typically there's a certain amount that they want to keep and retain for emergencies, but then there may be excess amounts. For those excess amounts, you have to really ask yourself a question: do I see any need for those funds within the next 6 to 12 months? If the answer is yes, you don't want to lock it up into a certificate of deposit that could mature later than the need for the money. Or if the need comes up earlier, etc., you don't want to do it as well. So liquidity itself is extremely important. When will I need that money? Do I see needing it? And maybe can I do a layering, as Aaron was suggesting, with a money market, with CDs, so that I can meet what I think are my current liquidity requirements.
Right, because rate of return, crediting rate is not the only factor that you want to consider when you're making a selection between a CD and a money market account. Because they're not really comparable. They just happen to, be different forms of savings vehicles.
Very good, babe. So you think we should take our break number 2 of our second hour?
Let's take break number 2 of our second hour, and when we get back, we have quite a few text questions that have come in, so we will get to those right after this break.
Now is when Coventry turns confusion into clarity. Coventry Healthcare has got a simple approach to care. By listening to their members, Coventry can make plans that work harder for you and your budget. The result? They offer great service and clear costs. If you're looking for a plan that's more about you, give them a call at 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now is the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I'm asking about Prevnar 20 because there's a chance pneumococcal pneumonia could put me in the hospital.
Age 65 or older, you may be at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. The most commonly reported side effect was pain at the injection site. For additional common side effects and full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
I want to be able to keep my plans.
So I'm asking my doctor about getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
Now is when a small change can make a big difference. If you're not happy with your current Medicare coverage, take a look at Coventry Healthcare. They have a wide range of plans with great service and clear costs, including medical and drug coverage in one simple plan. Just call 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now's the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, it's 10:43 here on the Big 550 KTRS. We've got about 16 minutes left of the show to answer your questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the currently filling up hotline.
Oh, yeah, it's very hot. And our first texter says, I am 72 and still working. I have access to a 401k through my employer. I plan on retiring in 3 years. I am making catch-up savings to reach my goal. Should I be putting money in the 401k or open a Roth and put money in there? Thank you.
Well, curiously enough, you may be able to do both based on your income.
Right.
I would certainly suggest that what's happening here is that if you are making contributions, you're also getting required. You're getting close to be able to take required minimum distributions, right?
Right. Well, sometimes if you're an active participant in a retirement plan, as long as you are not one of the owners or primary aggregate account holders, you don't have to take your RMD. You have to check with your plan for the provisions there.
Yeah, so putting it in a Roth versus doing, I would suggest that. Again, I think pre-tax contributions makes a lot of sense. You do get a tax deduction. you will have to take required minimum distribution at some point in time, but it's cool. So I would say if you can do both, but I would really lean more towards filling up the pre-tax bucket.
That's a great point, Dad, which is that none of these decisions are generally all or nothing. I would say take a look at your tax bracket, figure out how much you have to put into the pre-account to either keep yourself in the same bracket or drop yourself into a lower bracket. And then if there's any balance left to be able to contribute additional funds, then I would say let's use the Roth.
Good answer. Woohoo! Next.
And our next texter writes, I am 64 years old and not quite ready to retire from my job. Should I elect to take my Social Security benefits now or wait till I reach my normal retirement age at 67? Thank you.
Well, without knowing income, my default answer would be do not take your Social Security benefit because you're going to have income limitations for the next 2 years, essentially, until you reach your normal retirement age. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by having to pay portions of your Social Security benefit back because you've earned above what those income limitations are. But if you decide to keep working past normal retirement age and you have a specific need for your Social Security benefit, you're paying down debt, you're filling up your vault. At the top of the show, we talked about some clients that we met with in the past week that had accumulated quite a bit, several million inside of their retirement accounts, but they had very little, in fact, less than $25,000 in after-tax assets. So one of our goals for them is going to be to amass some more after-tax assets that they have available. We often call that the vault or your emergency fund. We need to build that back up. If that's a goal of yours, Social Security might be a great way to jumpstart that for you. So there are some reasons why you might take Social Security while you're still working.
Yeah, honey, that's really good. And again, a couple of the other purposes that many of our clients use this for is maybe it's getting rid of a bank loan quicker or paying off credit card debt. Maybe it's also just amassing cash so they can quit earlier, replace certain number of months of their income need. If you're earning over 19.8, texter, the answer is you don't want to do this because, as Aaron mentioned, there's a take-back potential. But the other thing is you've locked your Social Security benefit into that earlier age.
Right, so you lose the 8% increase.
That's right. So if you don't need it, don't pay tax on money you're not using. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it today.
What else you got for us?
All right, awesome. And our next texter writes, I'm 52. I've been contributing an amount equal to my employer's match in my 401k, but I feel like I've fallen behind in savings in my retirement. Is there anything I can do?
Well, the texter mentioned that they've been contributing the amount that they receive from the match. I don't think I've ever heard of a single employer that matches 100% of your annual contribution limit to a retirement plan. So I would say the first thing there would be take a look at your monthly expenses. Are you creating any savings outside, or are you willing to create some additional forced savings by upping your contribution to your retirement plan and living off of a little bit less to make yourself feel more comfortable as if you've, started to catch up on that savings?
Honey, that's a good answer. And I was also thinking in my mind, let's just say for whatever reason, this texter was in a situation that they really couldn't afford to make further contributions to their retirement plan. Mm-hmm. What I'm wondering is maybe they ought to also be looking at their health insurance account.
HSA?
Is it possible that they could have an HSA option where they could reduce their fixed premium and then either add money to an HSA account, which is triple tax-free, or take that savings and put it into their 401k plan?
And I would just make one final comment, which is it might be time to have a coaching session with your investment advisor representative or come in and see us, because in many cases, the literature that says you need millions of dollars to retire is not true. And maybe you're in a better situation than you think you are, or truly nailing down your ultimate goal as opposed to just amassing more may be able to get you on a track where you're able to make those you can make some additional savings, or you can continue on the same path and we're just going to have to extend the time that you work. So there are a lot of options out there, and I would say, of course, in retirement, more is always better, but more doesn't have to be the only goal.
Honey, you make a really good point here, and what I will tell you is that in most coaching sessions that we have, folks realize that they're eligible for Social Security benefits. But in many cases, they really don't realize the impact of what Social Security benefits will be to their total income stream. They think about, I got to replace a part of my salary. Well, the truth is you don't. What you have to do is replace a part of your spending. So once you've been able to figure out what your actual monthly spending is, I would say, for folks we're working with, maybe it's $5,000-6,000 a month. Well,
3-4 is coming from Social Security.
Exactly. And so that replacement amount is not as great as you maybe think it is. And in some cases, if you were a great saver, maybe you can get out earlier, like the folks that we were talking about today. And if nothing else, you put yourself in the driver's seat. Right. Once you have the information, once you have the knowledge, and frankly, once you've accumulated the money, like our client said yesterday, he goes, if the boss ticks me off, I'm just going to leave. like, right? It's called take that job and shove it. I mean, there's no. It's kind of neat to be able to hold all the cards. So, get with your advisor, have a coaching session, do a true retirement plan income analysis. Figure out what's going on. Should you retire? If you have a spouse, the two of you, etc. Get a game plan done. You'll feel much better about your finances, especially in the fritzy market that we have right now.
That's right.
And our next texter writes, this is an interesting question. How long do I need to be married for my wife to get my Social Security after I pass away?
He's going to love this answer. Just 1 day. That's it.
How great is that?
So a lot of people confuse this with if you are looking to claim off of someone's benefit while they are alive. That's called the spousal benefit. So spousal benefit is when two people are alive. They don't necessarily have to be spouses any longer. They could be ex-spouses. However, if you plan to claim off of an ex-spouse's Social Security benefit, you need to have been married for at least 10 years. Now, for the survivor benefit, the requirement is literally 1 day. You just have to have the marriage certificate signed. However, if, like the texter mentions, if you predecease your wife and she marries the pool boy, then she is not eligible for the survivor benefit any longer. So,
or the pool boy living on it.
That's also true. So you want a reminder, even though you only are obligated in life to be married for 1 day, she can't marry anybody else if she wants the survivor benefit.
Right, and obviously if she was collecting a survivor benefit, which we see in many cases, some folks are widows or widowers, they then lose that benefit. Yeah. So, maybe living in sin is a better option. Not even considered sin anymore. I mean, and we see that a lot as well. So
we have gotten that. That was one of the it was one of the more unexpected questions that I have received in a coaching session, which is, should we get married? I don't know.
Well, let's start from do you love each other?
I don't think that's what they were asking me.
I know, but it begs the question.
Right.
No video, please. So, again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
We're not through.
And our next texter writes,
beautiful.
My new company does not offer a 401k. What are my best options for saving for retirement, and what do I do with my old 401k from my previous employer?
This is a good question. It's got some layers to it. I wish we could get a little bit more information from the texter, but the first thing I would say is, if you're married and your spouse has access to a retirement plan through their employer, my first thought would be, let's max out their retirement plan at work. Are you making the full contribution, reducing their paycheck or increasing their payroll deduction to maximize that, and you'll be living off of predominantly or more of your personal paycheck.
good one. That's certainly a good option. Obviously, based on the income level, assuming you were married, you could do a spousal IRA.
That's also an option,
which is kind of a nice one. If you're self-employed, you could certainly look at a simple IRA plan.
I don't think they're self-employed since they have a new employer, unless they're 1099 or something. That could be a little bit of a different situation. And then the next question from this texter was, what should they do with their old 401k from their previous employer?
Well, again, if you have more than $5,000 in your plan, you don't have to move it. If you like the investment options, that's certainly what you can do is leave it there.
Right.
Continue to mess with the plan. If you decide to move it into a self-directed IRA, you do what we call a trustee-to-trustee transfer so that there is no taxes paid on the transfer. And then you can make your own decisions on what you want to do. The only caveat there is that you can't then take that money and move it back into a 401k if your employer adopts a new one, as an example, or a new employer.
If you've made contributions to it outside of payroll deductions.
Exactly. So either keep it where it is or roll it if you want to look at different options. Or frankly, maybe you're in a situation where you really do want financial advice, and therefore, your financial advisor may require you to move the money into a plan so they get paid.
That's right. The other thing I would just say is if you decide that you're not in love with the 401k options at your previous employer, or you'd like more investment control and you move it into an IRA, I would just say leave that IRA. You might even call it in your own mind past employer 401k IRA. And if you have now come to the point where you're going to have to make a spousal IRA contribution in your name, open up another IRA and just make the contribution there. That'll keep the 401k IRA pure. And if you ever end up with an employer that has a retirement plan, or your employer adopts one, you could then roll that money into the 401k plan if you desired. So it would just keep your options open.
Good thinking, babe.
All right. Great. And our next texter writes, and I think we must have hit a nerve out there, at what age can you claim a spousal benefit if you are an ex?
So, again, there are distinctions between the spousal benefit and the survivor benefit. Spousal benefit, you have to be at least 62 years old in order to claim that benefit, even if you're an ex. So it's married or divorced, 62 is the minimum.
Do you have to be married for any length of time for that to 10 years?
10 years.
10 years.
Hold on.
You have to be married 10 years if you're divorced and want to claim off of your divorced spouse. If you're married, you can only have to be married theoretically one day to claim the spousal benefit if you're currently wed. The survivor benefit, however, you can begin claiming that at 60. That would be if your spouse passed away and you haven't remarried. But all of these are discounted by the 8% based on your normal retirement age. So just because you have access to claim it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be your best choice.
Well, that and the other thing you might also want to, take into consideration here is that as the laws have changed with Social Security benefits, you cannot claim the spousal benefit that is off of your spouse's record if, in fact, your spouse is not taking their benefit.
That is also true.
That was a huge benefit change that happened before, and that really shut down a lot of Social Security claiming strategies.
Right.
So,
good
question.
The only benefit, though, that you do have the ability to switch from is the survivor benefit. So if you started taking the survivor benefit at 60 years old and you get to your normal retirement age, they will allow you to switch over there. However, spousal benefits are not eligible for what's called deeming at this point. That was changed several years ago in exchange for hopefully keeping the Medicare Part B premium under control. I think it happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago now at this point. So with that being said, we just have a couple seconds left. I'd just like to remind everyone that if you'd like a coaching session, just give our office a call, 314-863-0008, or you can send my dad or I an email, aaron@jblfinancial.com or jeff@jblfinancial.com. We will see you next week.
If opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Be listening next week at 9 for more Straight Talk.